Wow.
It's amazing, man. All right.
Do you think Mookie Betts' least favorite pitch is the Kodai Senga ghost
Maybe.
forkball?
Could be. He might be afraid of it. It's a good
He's
point.
afraid of the ghost pepper?
It may be.
Does that scare him too?
Let's see if Jeff McLane's afraid of ghosts.
He's
Let's head
not
to the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward. What's next from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Inquirer.com. Jeff, are you afraid of ghosts?
Jeff would go up to the ghost and just start quizzing him.
I don't think I've ever even thought about that.
Because the Mookie Betts, who's a tremendous outfielder for the Dodgers, they're at a team hotel in Milwaukee that is considered haunted. He is staying in an Airbnb because he's that afraid of ghosts. I got to respect him for it. If he's afraid, go do what you want to do.
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, there's a lot of. I think I know what hotel that is.
You have another one?
Is it a Pfister?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and he doesn't want to stay in it because he's afraid of ghosts.
The Phillies typically stay there too.
Ooh.
I wonder if there's ever been a Phillies player that's also opted out of staying in the hotel.
Well, they all look haunted right now, so that could be the case.
The Phillies do look haunted right now. Maybe it'll help them if they stayed there. Jeff, we got preseason action in the books Friday night when they took on the Baltimore Ravens. The offensive stars, majority of them did not play. Obviously, there's the competition at right guard. But I want to focus on the defense first with you. Some of your takeaways from the players that did play defensively. Who stood out to you?
Well, I wrote about Quinyon Mitchell. He's the top draft pick, and clearly had a near interception. Nice play, jumped the ball, jumped a route, and probably should have had the catch. And there were other times I watched him when I rewatched the game where I thought he looked apart. But that's pretty much what we've seen in camp so far. I mean, it's nice to see it up against different guys in different jerseys, and we'll get a better view of that this week up here in New England with the joint practice and then with the preseason game. The other starters didn't play a heck of a lot. I thought Keely Ringo performed well. And I think, I know that Isaiah Rodgers has been up a little more in terms of how many snaps they're playing with the first team. But if they really want Quinyon in the nickel in the slot and nickel, I think Keely's performed better than Rodgers. I'd have him on the outside. We'll see how that plays out. But I thought he played well. He popped defensively. Angelic Punt has really kind of surprised me because I just thought that this and everything I heard about him was he's very raw. It's going to take a while to develop, and there were some mistakes out there, but he can play. He'll play in this league, and in fact, I thought he popped a little more than Nolan Smith, who's a first rounder, and the Eagles are expecting a lot out of him this season. He did have that one sack; it was a nice rush. I'm not saying he didn't play well, but Hunt popped a little more than me. For me, I'm a lot of times looking at the rookies. Another guy too, I thought it was Trotter. Trotter can play in the NFL. I don't know how good how good he's going to be, but the kid clearly can play at this level.
Jeff, when you look at the approach that Vic Fangio articulates, he has clearly said many, many times, and I've read in some of your pieces, he believes players should play in the preseason. They need to play. They need to get comfortable. Does he have a different philosophy than his head coach?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of said it as much. I mean, I think I asked him all the way back when we first got him in May about, practice and getting them, practicing more. And then again, he was asked, the preseason. He said, yeah, I'm trying to get Nick to let me play the guys more. Cause, look, you can only do so much. You can only simulate so much in a practice. You're not finishing plays, and it's not just about the tackling. There's more to it than that because you're playing at a different speed, and you're playing full out. I'm saying the practices. I don't care what Nick says about certain position groups about the offensive line. I'm watching them; they're not going full out, and the linemen can't go full out because they can't hit the quarterback. So it's not the same. That being said, I understand when the Eagles are coming from when they're resting Jalen Hurts and the other guys, right? I mean, you don't want to see someone get hurt. We've seen it happen before. You don't want to see one of your key players get hurt in a really an otherwise meaningless game. So I see both sides of it. 2022, the Eagles starting offense and Jalen, they played I think 6 plays. He drove them to a touchdown. That was it, and then they went all the way to a Super Bowl. So it could be good, it could be bad. I don't stand on it in one way. I just report on it.
So, Jeff, I mean, the offense, Nick Sirianni's reasoning was because of the field. He didn't like the way the field was
Yeah.
the way it felt. And then defensively, he said the field was fine. So which one was it? Is it he didn't want to play the offensive players, but Vic Fangio wanted to play the defensive players?
Well, he said that there's a little more involved in the offense than the defense, obviously with the quarterback. So that maybe affects the field conditions, can affect them a little more than the defense. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, look, all I know is that there were players that were told, earlier that day that they were going to play a series. Now, maybe they were trying to have them prepare that way, and Nick knew all along that the offense wasn't playing. I mean, I always figured that most of the defensive players were going to play a lot, but yeah. So I don't know. It might have been the field. I was told it wasn't super wet, but it definitely was. It rained a lot there. Even with the tarp, it's going to still be wet. So I don't know. I don't know why he chose at some point to not play him. I feel like either you're just going to play him or you're not. Make the decision and make it easier on everybody. I guess your players included, and just deciding when you're going to do it. I don't get all the secrecy with it sometimes.
Jeff, tell us a little bit about the logistics of how these joint practices work. How much collaboration there is between the organizations as far as what they want to work on, how the coaches talk to each other about it, and more.
Yeah, I mean, Nick and Gerard Mayo have spoken probably extensively about what drills are going to do. How much are we going to have it with the first, the second, or the third team? Typically, you really don't see the third team practice a lot in these settings. You want to get the top guys their work. And for the Eagles, certainly, they're going to want their first team to play a lot of snaps because my guess is they're not going to play on Thursday, especially if they get a good workout in here. And that'll be it. This will be the most important day for most of the starters ahead of the opener in Brazil. And then in terms of the contact, they'll kind of go over that, how far you want to take it. Usually it's thud, where guys there'll definitely be a fair amount of contact, and you'll just stop short of tackling. You'll hit. But you won't tackle to the ground. And then typically a lot of the coaches, what they do now, just to, stop there from being fights, they tell guys, okay, well, I've heard this. I don't know if Nick's done this, but some teams have been hey, if you get in a fight, you're going to have to play in the preseason game, right? To the starters, which is a pretty good threat, right? A lot of these guys don't want to play in the preseason. Or, they get thrown out of practice. We've seen that before. Last year we saw Jason Kelce hit Zahir Franklin after a 20-yard running start, and that ended practice. I don't know. I don't think Jason had any. There were any repercussions for Jason, but they're trying to avoid that. They don't want to have fights because they're really trying to get work in here.
Speaking of Jeff McLane on the Comcast Business Hotline, speaking of Jason Kelce was on a podcast yesterday and started talking a little bit more about what happened last season. And he talked a lot about the second half of the season, which we clearly know the team struggled. And he talked about how the offense was simplified and the defense was too much almost. They went in opposite directions. When more of these stories come out, Jeff, and obviously you have been reporting it more and more, does part of you still feel a little surprised that Nick Sirianni's back? We moved on. He's the head coach. I'm not asking you should he be the head coach or not, but is there part of you that goes, man, I'm actually surprised he's back?
Well, again, I'm not going to take a stance really on what I think of Nick as a head coach, but I was surprised because I'd heard that they were really considering firing him, right? That's why I was surprised, and I guess to some degree understandable, but at the same time, not, because if you look at his record and what he's done, and he's been in the playoffs 3 years, there was enough of an argument for bringing him back. Jason, look, obviously, because he says it's going to carry a little more weight, but yeah, we were certainly reporting on that at the time that Patricia was definitely trying to do his stuff and make it more complicated, but just changing the scheme or trying to in the middle of this at the end of was going to make it much more difficult for the defensive players, right? When Matt was handed the job and I was calling around and looking more into his scheme, it's he's never run this scheme before, right? So he's going to have to change, or he's going to have to run someone else's scheme. So that in itself is just obviously a total boggled job by Nick, and also Harry Roseman's involved in these decisions. I'm not taking anything off of him either here. And on the offensive side, they tried to simplify things because for myriad reasons, but in Jalen being one of them, and I think that's what they're doing here with the blitz this offseason. They're kind of taking it a step further here because with Jason not being there to call out protections pre-snap versus the blitz, you get into a more little traditional role here for Jalen, and that he'll be able to kind of be hot a little more. He'll be able to kind of set protections a little more. But what they're doing is they're like that makes it a little more simple for Jalen in terms of the answers. And I think with Jason making the call, sometimes it wasn't that way, and that's why you saw down the stretch last year teams were blitzing the crap out of them, or at least the teams that were blitzing the crap out of them, they couldn't pick them up. Anyway, in terms of Nick, I don't think it's any secret that Nick, his seat's getting hotter, right? I mean, there's no denying that heading into the season.
Absolutely. Jeff, listen, man, we appreciate it
Thank
as
you,
always.
Jeff.
We love your work. You're doing great things on the Inquirer, Inquirer.com. We keep on following your podcast as well.